Hey folks, welcome back to FreepCast. My name is Rob Murray. I'm here with managing editor Joe Spear. And Joe, did you see any of that or hear anything about that hockey game last night? West boys lost a heartbreaker.
Yeah, it was a heartbreaker. This is the hockey season. We're getting into the state tournament time. Very exciting for me and you. We grew up with hockey, and so we like to watch the games, and it's really fun, competitive. But West hadn't been in it since 2016, and it was a heartbreaking loss. West was ahead, and then Laverne's a darn good team, though. They have a legacy kind of being in the state tournament from Southwest Minnesota. I always wonder what their youth program must look like because they're a pretty small area. They're a pretty small town, and they must be really like a war road of the South or something like that.
Maybe. I'm always surprised to see that name come up in a hockey
New Ulm
situation
was good for a while.
Yeah,
too.
New Ulm's always been pretty good.
New Ulm was pretty good, but yeah, heartbreaking loss. And East didn't even get that close this year, so they usually have a pretty competitive hockey team. So we're going to see a lot of high school hockey next week, right? And Laverne, maybe they tend to be competitive, so it'll be fun to watch. That it's always a good Wednesday through Saturday kind of event. But we have to also talk about before we get too far, we want to again acknowledge our sponsor, Minnesota Valley Federal Credit Union. If you get something out of this podcast, thank them. Great folks. Want to talk about Maverick hockey, men's Maverick hockey, though. Clinched the McNaughton Cup last weekend. 7th of 8th year. 7 out of 8 years. They just lost it by a little bit last year. But new coach Luke Strand brought the team back. They got the McNaughton Cup. Have you ever lifted the McNaughton Cup?
I have lifted the McNaughton Cup. That's a heavy
cup.
It's a heavy cup.
And I think they were one year they were taking it around to the bars, and I don't know if people were actually drinking beer out of it, but it's possible.
One would hope
that could have happened. Heavy cup, and it's like 100 years old, right? It was made out of silver, and it's really heavy silver. The McNaughton family, I think, out of Michigan is where that originated. But Mavs get the conference. Doesn't mean they're in the tournament, the national tournament. The conference doesn't matter, which some people argue, should it? Maybe it should matter more than, because now they've got to play the conference tournament. The first series is 2 out of 3 next weekend. This weekend is Bemidji, last home games. And then it's single elimination after that. So, I mean, you can have a really stellar team throughout the year. We're 17-5-2 for a winning percentage of 7.22. And then you lose one game, have one bad game, and you're out.
Bad night, yeah.
And they're not high enough in the pairwise. They're about 17, I think. You really got to be in the 12 area. So I don't think the pairwise is going to get them in. So a lot of watching and waiting on Maverick hockey. We don't know who they're going to play yet in the first round. It's going to be here. And I just talked with Kevin Dudley, our sports guy, and he said a lot can be determined this weekend still on who we play. But, sometimes these Cinderella teams, we got beat by one of the teams we lost to this year, had 5 wins or something like that. So
yeah, they lost to Northern Michigan earlier in the year, and they were like the worst team in the league for a while.
It can happen, yeah. So, and the other thing a lot of people have discussed, and I know Coach Bros called me about this and said we should talk about it more. The way they won the conference this year was by percentage of wins, not just by the record percentage, because Augustana, right, played a shorter schedule, and CCHA officials said, well, whoever has the highest percentage of wins wins. And Augustana had a pretty good season, but they played 8 fewer games than we did. So they had 9-5-2. They were in second. They came in second with a .625 percentage. So I don't know how I feel about that percentage idea.
What are you going to do? I mean, they didn't have enough games to truly have a chance to win.
But is that on all the rest of us?
I don't know what else you do. I mean, you have to give them some
games,
kind of a chance.
Guys.
Yeah, maybe.
Play some more games.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's a temporary situation and it won't be carried over to next year.
I think MSU should have just won the games they should have won.
Well,
and they wouldn't be in this situation.
Well, you can argue that, I guess. But anyway, Augustana came up in the first year in the league, had a pretty good team. Worth mentioning, Alex Tracy, goalie for MSU. I'm a goalie, as you know, former goalie. You're never a former goalie. You're always a goalie, right?
We always say it explains a lot about how you think about
Well, or how many times they got hit in the head with the puck.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But this guy has no worries about getting hit in the head with a puck. He is a stellar student athlete of the CCHA, finance major, has a GPA of 3.94, finance,
Stellar.
and a goalie. Have you ever heard of a goalie who is a finance major?
No, in fact, I'm going to have to question what's going on out there. I cannot see a goalie being that intelligent.
Ken Dryden was a lawyer, the famous stellar
Oh, was he really?
goalie for the Montreal Canadiens,
Yeah.
became a lawyer. Yeah, and he sued the team. Most people don't know that.
He sued the Canadians?
Yeah, after he was done for needed more compensation, I believe, or something was unfair. And I think he won. But Ken Dryden. But anyway, Tracy has a 1.46 goals against average. Just 1.46 goals a game. That's not 2 goals a game. It's 1.5.
It's amazing.
Leads Division One. Most people don't know that as the best goals against average in Division One, and a .944 save percentage, second best in the country. So he doesn't get as much of the hype, I think, as
Dryden McKay.
Dryden McKay. We were talking about Dryden. I should
Name
have
who
remembered
was,
that.
I think his folks named him
Yes,
after Ken Dryden.
they did. So cool that we have a goaltender that is stellar and smart and will probably do well. But so hockey's big. I want to say also Tracy helps coach the adaptive floor hockey team that we have that is also going to the state tournament.
Oh, they are?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Coached by Dylan Botcher.
Yeah, we did a story.
On the cover of our magazine a year ago.
That is so cool. The adaptive hockey, I haven't watched a game, but it's like 30-20, right? Or there's a lot of goals scored.
Yeah. A lot of action.
So if you're goalie in
a lot
that
of energy
league, it's tough. It's got to be tough. So other news that's happening, what strikes you as a big deal? The fentanyl issue we were talking
fentanyl
about.
issue was a big one. It was unusual to see that get turned back by the appeals court like the day after we wrote about it.
Yeah, and we've had several of these fentanyl murder cases because of overdoses, and most of them are not the highest murder. They're not premeditated or anything like that. It's just tragic accidents, but got overturned because they had toxicology report, right? But the person who did the toxicology report could not testify. They didn't work into their schedule, or they were gone or something. So the court just went ahead and used it and had somebody else testify about it, answer questions about it. You want to ask, how does this work? Why is the toxicology needed? Why is it right? Why is it wrong? And the court said that wasn't good enough. You should have had the guy who did the report so defense could question him directly, and said you go back to Blue Ridge County and do that. So the case is back here, and now this family, the Gustafson family, right, has to go through the whole trial again. And the Gustafsons, most people know, have been very much out front with their story, advocating, educating, so people don't get into these tragic situations like their son did. And they even have a billboard that's been financed by some foundations in town, I think, and some donors who want to bring awareness to this issue. But now we're going to have a whole nother court, and it's not a good outcome for the family, really, and have to go through it again.
Seems like a trial management issue.
Well, I guess it's a management issue, or is it a judgment issue? Was that good enough? Yeah. Ideally, you'd want
mistakes were made. Mistakes were made. I would have to guess on the prosecution side.
Yeah, if you're bringing that expert in, you want to try to work around their schedule.
Yeah.
It's an important court case.
100%.
So let's try to do that. So
and now the family has to go through this again.
Yeah, and we sure appreciate that family and respect them for doing what they're doing. They're advocates, and I know we've worked with them, and they've complimented us on our coverage as well on this. And it's just really important to continue to bring attention to the issue.
They have been. I mean, it's pretty rare that a family is so open with the media to tell the story of the horror they went through in a case like this. So kudos to them, and also to Brian, our reporter Brian Arla, for telling their story with a thoughtful touch.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it is really important that these stories get told, and we're there to listen, and that's what we do in every case. And we invite people who, want to get the word out, want to educate people, to contact us on these kind of things, and we can handle them.
I want to mention our sponsor again, Joe.
Sponsor, Minnesota Valley Federal Credit Union. Thanks for sponsoring us. Another interesting story, and I thought an important one that should be done, is our reporter Renee Berg talked to physicians who work with transgender kids and kids going through trans treatment, and just about how all this public political Trump administration, I don't know what it is, how to just anger or political gamesmanship or whatever, just being really angry at these trans people and everybody who supports them. And it's just really ugly.
Yeah.
And these kids are doing the best they can, but the docs say they're petrified when they hear this stuff. Can you imagine being treated for something like this, and you're very struggling with it? People are already, what's wrong with you? And now you've got national leaders saying you're not right.
Well, when you hear the president of our country say, enough with this trans nonsense, if you're a child and you hear the president say that, I mean, you're going to be petrified.
And
not to be political here, but
no.
I mean, it's just, if you're a kid and you hear our country's leaders say that, that's, I can't even imagine how that would feel.
Yeah, well, it's not political calling out something that, we basically think is the wrong thing to do for humanity and for kindness.
Yeah.
So I want to make that clear. But, and we just have to support, and the doctors and the science is there. These treatments are relevant. They're not just something,
it's not a whim or a...
Right, it's not a whim. It's necessary for their health and for their mental health, and the trans community has a high rate of suicide ideation, and so I'm glad we did that story again, raising awareness on something maybe people is not at the top of their mind every day, but it should be. So I think we got a couple other stories. There's a new apartment building being built in Old Town, proposed 5-story apartment building near the food hub. Now, I'm going to say near the food hub because the diagrams we reported on and the facts from City Hall, show it near the food hub, near, and best we can tell, the parking lot that serves the food hub, not on top of the food hub where the food trucks are.
Okay.
And it got spun online in Facebook saying we said it was right on top of the food park. And no, we didn't. We didn't say that. If you read the story detail by detail, Mark's very meticulous story going from records, documents, things we verify as facts. So we asked questions and we put in calls to the developer for 2 or 3 days waiting for them to get back to us and tell us more about it. They said they would at one point, and then didn't. And so, we're just not going to sit around and wait all day. We're put news out to the people. But it sounded like the food hub part of it was going to still be there, although people I've talked to raise questions about parking. And is there enough parking there? Is there enough parking by the silos? I think the city is, I'll have to check this, changing some of their parking requirements or modifying ideas about parking. Always an important topic. Anyway, don't know that we have a lot beyond that. It's kind of a slower news week, unless you have something to.
Well, you know who it wasn't a slow week for? Photographer Casey Eck
Yeah.
had a baby.
Exciting.
So good for him. Congratulations to Casey.
Congrats.
Who's usually the one, the behind the scenes
Yes.
person. Today we have Holly Marie Moore doing a great job for us. Thanks,
Yes.
Holly.
Standing in for Casey.
But Casey's got to be gone for a couple of weeks. I
3.
think.
All the best to he and Bridget.
The baby's name is Sterling.
Sterling?
Sterling, yeah.
Sterling.
It's a
I
good
like
name.
it.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's all. I think that's all I got.
That's all I got. Want to give one more shout out to our sponsor. This podcast is sponsored by Minnesota Valley Federal Credit Union, happily serving those who live or work or do business in Blue Earth, Nicollet, LeSueur, Waseca, Brown, or Watonwan counties since 1934. We also want to encourage you to subscribe to our great journalism. You can do that just by calling us, 625-3764, email readerservice@mankatofreepress.com, or go right to our website and hit the subscribe button. You can do it all online. There's an option for online only, print, and online, all kinds of options. Also want to mention you can get reprints of our photos with our partner SPX Sports, 345-7196. And again, you can go to our website and find a link to order reprints. Otherwise, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks.